Like his music, it was all geared toward capturing the magic of the tropical places Buffett loved best.
From New Orleans to the Gulf Coast, down into St. Bart's and other places, I still can find magic in most of those places where people think there isn't any left.
Our thanks to Stephanie for that great report. And CNN's Patrick Oppmann joins us now from Havana, Cuba. Patrick, great to see you again. I know you've got a lot of great stories about Jimmy Buffett from over the years. He was a frequent visitor to the island, as we were talking about earlier on this program. He was a frequent visitor. Sometimes he would go through the proper channels, some maybe not so much, but he loved going to Cuba and all over the Caribbean, Key West. I mean, that was his home.
Oh, very much, Jim. And you remember meeting him during the visit of President Obama way back when, and he loved being here. Cuba was a place that was very close to his heart, even if Americans weren't always allowed to come here. And his father turned one in Havana Harbor on a fishing on a sailboat, and that's where Havana Daydream came from. And he heard the music here. He loved the Cuban people, and this is a place where he will be missed.
And tell us about these impromptu concerts that Jimmy Buffett would do in Cuba. There's a picture of me with Jimmy back in 2016. He was there as part of President Obama's trip to Cuba when he was trying to normalize relations with the island back then. And I know Jimmy was interested in trying to develop some business opportunities as he has all over. Anywhere where there's a beach, Jimmy wanted to put restaurants and hotels and so on. But he was also just a fixture around the island of Cuba as well, Patrick, for other reasons, and you witnessed some of this. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Just a couple stories. You know, one thing that he never publicized, but he would always call me a couple days before coming down here and ask me to set up a concert with U.S. diplomats serving in Havana, and particularly with the U.S. Marines. He loved the Marines, the ones who guard the embassies here and around the world. And I remember, several times he'd be in someone's backyard and he'd be there playing. You can hear the music from one of the videos that one of the Marines shot, and here you guys who are 20 years old singing these songs, knew them word for word. Songs are older than they are, and I had a couple diplomats and Marines write me today say this was the highlight of their service for the U.S. government, that a big star came and treated them like they were the stars, and meant so much to them.
Yeah, and he was a savvy businessman as well. He had hundreds of restaurants, he had hotels, and they all were, emblematic of this beach bum lifestyle. Blew up my flip-flop, stepped on a pop-top. Those were his lyrics, and I can hear them going through my head right now. I grew up on Jimmy Buffett. I brought one of my mom's albums here. Here it is right here. This tells you a little bit about my childhood. This is what I was listening to growing up. But I mean, he just sort of personified this Caribbean island. I mean, he was living the dream, essentially, Patrick.
He as his family said in the statement, his life was like a song, and it really was. I mean, here's a man who got paid millions of dollars to perform in stadiums with tens of thousands of people. And I remember one night here, we had dinner with him, and he said, I'm going to go play a couple songs with some Cuban musicians that he just met. And we ended up in someone's backyard with maybe 20 or 30 people, and I thought, he'll play a song or two, and that'll be it. And he played till 4 a.m. in the morning. He was just having a great time, free concert in someone's backyard. I don't even know who these people were. We got done, and we went to go home. Finally, he was going to go back to his hotel, and the Soviet limo, a Soviet ZIL limo that he'd been one of Fidel Castro's, that he'd rented, the driver had taken off hours before because he'd gotten tired and wanted to go home. So then we had to give Jimmy Buffett a ride home in our tiny car. So my wife, Alex, I, and Jimmy's pilot, Gerald, was a big guy. We had to pack into our tiny little car. And somehow Jimmy ended up sitting in our son's car seat. Our son Nico, who was 2 years old, his car seat. And I thought, this is just a mess. And Jimmy was cracking up because he said it was good training because he was hoping to fly to space with Jeff Bezos. And I realized this was one of the most amazing nights of my life, and yet this was every night of Jimmy Buffett's life. And he, every day was an adventure, every day was a discovery, and he had as much fun as anybody ever did on this earth, and he lived life to the fullest. And we're just going to miss him a lot because that's who he was all the time. And when you were in that orbit, you relished it. You really soaked it up.
You really did. And I mean, when I met him in Havana, I just could not get over how personable he was, how approachable he was. He didn't have all these PR flacks around him and say, hey, no, you can't talk to Jimmy you could just go right up to him. And I mean, I just walked away from that experience thinking, if only I could, you know, experience life in his flip-flops. You know, he just had that kind of life that every guy, you know, on a bar stool, I guess, dreamed of, which is, you know, doing it your way.
Those are flip-flops, Jim. They're going to be impossible to fill. You know,
Yeah.
he was 76. He had some health problems, but we were talking earlier, when you're larger than life, it's impossible to kind of imagine that you're going to go, and yet you take some solace in all the great stories and the life that he lived and the joy that he brought, and just our condolences to his family and the people who worked with him for years, who he was very loyal to. You know, they've got to be hurting, and yet, you know, to have been near him, around him, we will have these stories forever.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Patrick Oppmann, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Good to see you.